sort of investigation or so. All right. Scientists, maybe they're trying to look for a cure for something, or just trying to look at some sort of come up with some sort of invention. Okay, so I put this here just to show you that, okay, this may be part of research or it may be part of development, may be part of research as development. All right. Now, why would you want to do research and development? You want to develop a new product. All right. And if you develop a new product, that new product might be an internally generated intangible asset. So the learning outcomes for this section, you should be able to explain what is meant by an internally generated intangible asset. You should be able to identify internally generated intangible assets that are always expensed. You should differentiate between research and development costs, and also you should explain the recognition criteria of the development phase. Okay. So let us first look at internally generated goodwill. Internally generated goodwill. Can you tell me what is the definition of goodwill? What is the definition of goodwill?
Is it not the business's reputation?
Business's reputation, yes. What else? It can be considered as a business's reputation. What else is it? All right. So you might look at the reputation of a business. You can also consider the excess of what is paid by a business to acquire another business over what the value of that business was. So for example, if you're buying a business and the business is valued at 200,000 Namibian dollars, but you paid 250,000 Namibian dollars for that business, the extra 50,000 can be considered as goodwill, but that goodwill will not be internally generated goodwill. That goodwill is considered as purchased goodwill because it actually came about as a result of buying a business. All right. So let us go back to what was said by the previous speaker, where it was mentioned that reputation of a business. So for example, you have a business, let us say you're a takeaway, and you provide the best hot dogs and burgers and street food, okay? And you have a loyal customer base that you have created. You may consider that as goodwill. You may consider that as goodwill. Customers will always return to you, all right, because of your reputation. The reputation maybe for the ingredients that you use, for the freshness of your products, for just how delicious your food is. Okay. But internally generated goodwill, you cannot capitalize it because you cannot necessarily measure it. Because although you have this loyal customer base, how do you measure the future economic benefits that will flow to the entity? Can you guarantee that all those customers will come to your takeaway on a certain date? You cannot really guarantee that. So always we will expense internally generated goodwill. Okay. And why is it expensed? It is expensed because it cannot be separately identified. It cannot be separately identified, okay? It might contribute to the promotion of a successful business through customer loyalty, you have efficient service, but you cannot separately identify it. And if it's not separately identifiable, then it does not meet the definition and recognition criteria of an intangible asset. All right. Purchased goodwill may be capitalized in terms of IFRS 3 business combinations. I already explained that. Purchased goodwill can be capitalized. Okay, other expensed internally generated assets. If you've developed a brand, then you have to expense that. A masthead, a masthead is just like a title for a magazine or a newspaper. So you might look at the Namibian, if you have the look at the Namibian on the front page, that title head there that says the Namibian, and that was developed, okay? That you have to expense. Any publishing, titles, customer lists, these ones are always expensed, all right? They're always expensed. Main reason, it's not separately identifiable. Those costs are not separately identifiable from costs of developing the business. That is why you cannot capitalize them. All right, that is why you cannot capitalize them. Are there any questions? Sorry. I wanted to go to Teams. It looks like something was flashing. So let us move on. Example 1. How should the following intangible assets be treated in the financial statement? A publishing title acquired as part of a subsidiary company, and the second one, a license purchased in order to market a new product. How are each of these treated? How should those intangible assets be treated? Anyone? Can anyone help me? You can choose which one you want to answer. Let me check if there's anything in the chat. There's nothing in the chat. What? How would you treat this? All right. So let us look at the publishing title. The answer depends on whether the asset can be valued reliably. If this is possible, the title will be recognized at its fair value. Otherwise, it will be treated as part of goodwill on acquisition of the subsidiary. So what I want to show you here, we say internally generated intangible assets should always be expensed. And an example was given of publishing titles as an internally generated intangible asset. But now in this example, we are saying that this publishing title can be capitalized if it is possible to determine its fair value, all right? And its fair value can be reliably measured. So why is this different? This is different because of the way the question was posed. This publishing title was acquired as part of a subsidiary company. So it's acquired as part of a business combination, all right? It wasn't, it was developed internally by the company that is being acquired, okay? So the company that is being acquired would not have been able to capitalize any costs that related to that publishing title. However, now the acquirer, the new company, the company that is buying the company that developed the publishing title, that company is permitted to capitalize the cost of the publishing title if its fair value can be reliably measured. All right. So if it's internally generated for the company, then that company will not be able to capitalize it. However, if it is purchased as part of a business combination, then it may be capitalized, but only if the fair value is reliably measured. The second one, a license that is purchased in order to market a new product. So this was the example that we did in Gripping Up, whereby a patent was purchased, all right? So this would be treated in exactly the same way as the patent that was be treated in the same way that the patent was be treated, and that is that the license should be capitalized, all right? It should be capitalized. It was purchased, it was not developed internally. It should be capitalized. All right. I think that is quite clear. Now let us look at internally generated intangible assets. Okay. Internally generated intangible assets, there are two phases to an internally generated intangible asset. One phase is the research phase, and the other phase is the development phase. We will look and see what is meant by research and what is meant by development. All right. What is meant by research and what is meant by development. So first of all, we'll look at research. What is research? IAS 38 Intangible Assets defines research as the original and planned investigation undertaken with the prospect of gaining new scientific or technical knowledge, all right, and understanding. Original and planned investigation undertaken with the prospect of gaining new scientific or technical knowledge and understanding. So it's an investigation, all right. It's an investigation, and the objective of that investigation is to gain new scientific or technical knowledge and understanding. So what happens during the research phase? You will conduct activities that are aimed at obtaining new knowledge. So these are examples of research activities. Activities aimed at obtaining new knowledge. The search for, evaluation, final selection of, application of research findings or other knowledge. The search for alternatives for materials, devices, products, processes, systems, or services, and the formulation, design, evaluation, and final selection of possible alternatives for new improved materials, devices, products, processes, systems, or services. All right. You can just learn or study these activities under the research phase to determine whether something actually falls under the research phase or if it falls under the development phase. Okay. So let us go back to the definition of research. The original and planned investigation undertaken with the prospect of gaining new scientific or technical knowledge and understanding. Now, what about development? Once you've done your research, you get to the development phase. And the development phase involves the application of research findings or other knowledge to plan or design for the production of new or substantially improved materials, devices, products, processes, systems, or services, and that is prior to the commencement of commercial production or use. Okay, so in simpler terms, you take your research findings, you use those research findings to plan for the design of a product or new substantially improved materials, and this is all done prior to the commencement of production or use of that particular product that you have developed. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product, it can be a system, it can be a process, it can be a service. Okay. The important thing to know is that in the development phase, you will apply your research findings. What are examples of development activities? The design, construction, and testing of pre-production or pre-use prototypes and models. Okay, so for example, at NUST a few years back, there was a solar car that was built, right? And that solar car, it was a prototype for other cars that might be built in the future. So the process whereby they designed and constructed that solar car, that can be considered a development activity. Other examples of development activities, the design of tools, jigs, molds, and dies involving new technology. Okay, a jig is something that can hold a machine or a tool and it allows you to operate that machine or that tool. All right, so the design of tools, jigs, molds, dies, and which involves new technology, that is considered part of and a development activity. What are examples of development costs? The salary of personnel involved in the development activities. All right, for example, salary of personnel that would have been paid to develop the solar car. So let us say those students at NUST were actually in a company and they actually designed that solar car and were paid a salary, then those salaries would have been considered as part of development costs. Depreciation on any equipment used, legal costs, and raw materials. All right, this will be examples of development costs. What's the difference between these two phases, the research phase and the development phase? In the research phase, you cannot prove that an asset will generate future economic benefits. Remember, this is still the investigation phase. All right. If you are unsure whether a cost falls under a research or development cost, classify it as a research cost, and research costs should always be expensed. In the development phase, you can demonstrate that future economic benefits will be generated. Okay, so let us go back to the example of the solar car. You can demonstrate that if this car is built, you'll be able to use it as a solar car. We have the sun there. It can be sold to other people, may generate economic benefits in that way. It's advanced. It's further advanced than the research phase. So remember, in the development phase, we're actually applying research findings. And finally, in the development phase, all the costs that are associated in the development phase should be capitalized if the recognition criteria are met. And you remember the recognition criteria? It must be probable that future economic benefits will flow to the entity, and the item must have a cost or value that can be measured with reliability. All right. Now, look at IAS 38 provides us with further recognition criteria for the development phase, okay? Further recognition criteria for the development phase. So the development costs can be capitalized if all of the following can be demonstrated, not some, all of the following. There must be technical feasibility of completing the intangible assets so that it will be available for sale of use. All right, so technical feasibility of completing the intangible asset is there. There must be the intention to complete the intangible asset, either to use it or to sell it. You must have the ability to use or sell the intangible asset. You should be able to demonstrate how the intangible asset will generate future economic benefits. For example, is there an existence? This should be existence. Is there an existence of a market? All right, that's if you're going to sell it. If you're not going to sell it, you have to be able to demonstrate how you will use it internally. Finally, not finally, the second last bullet, there should be the availability of adequate technical, financial, and other resources to complete the development of the intangible asset. And you should have the ability to measure reliably the expenditure on the intangible asset during the development phase. If you can meet all of these 6 points, then the recognition criteria is met and you can capitalize the development costs. If even one of these bullets is not met, you cannot capitalize the development cost, because it means this recognition criteria in the development phase is not met. All right. I think time is up. We'll end there for tangible assets. All right. And we will meet tomorrow. We'll meet tomorrow. Bye.